Good evening, friends, and welcome. My name is Lauren with Second Star to the Right Books in Denver, Colorado, and I am so excited to have not one, not two, but three super special guests today who are here to talk to us about their books and how we can empower disadvantaged youth through literature. So please join me with a very big virtual round of applause for our guests, Michelle Jones-Cole, Kimberly L. Jones, and Kim Johnson. Woo! Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you all so much for being here with us tonight. Do you want to get us started by telling us a little bit about yourself and your book? And Michelle, we'll start with you.
Sure. Sorry, I just got a cough just now. Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle, and I am the author of Black with the Ink, and it is my debut novel. It's a young adult historical fiction about the Reconstruction era with a young teenage boy from the present who takes a magical journey to the Reconstruction era with the help of a ghostly ancestor.
Very nice, welcome. And next in my little view here is Kimberly L. Jones.
Hello, my name is Kim Johnson. I wrote an amazing book called My America.
I love you so much.
I wish I was Kim Johnson who wrote This Is My America. I'm Kimberly Jones. I actually wrote Why We Fly, and I'm not dying with you tonight. Those are my YA books. And then I also have a short story in Game On, which is a fun anthology about gaming. And then I have an adult nonfiction called How We Can Win.
I don't even know how you kept a straight face. You're so good.
I thought I said the wrong name for a second. And last but not least, we have Kim Johnson.
Oh my goodness, I am so out of control today. Hey, it's so good to be here with y'all today. I am the author of This Is My America. I co-written with Kimberly Jones. Just kidding. It's my debut novel that just actually came back out in paperback last week. So I'm really excited that came out in paperback. But it's about a 17-year-old Black girl named Tracy Beaumont, whose father has been wrongfully incarcerated, and she writes weekly letters to Innocence X to help free her father until her brother is suspected of killing a white girl in her community. And it's a social justice, activism, family, community kind of story. And I have another book coming out next year called Invisible Sun. So looking forward for that. Looking forward to talking about that book too, Monday. Maybe not now, but in the future.
Well, welcome. Thank you all so much for being here. This is a very exciting panel to have, and we're so lucky to have all three of you here with us to talk about your books. So thank you. We have some moderator questions, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. I did forget to mention, friends, if you haven't bought the books yet, we have those at Second Star. So I'll be dropping links in the chat so that you can get your copies as well. So to get us started, first of all three of your novels are amazing and powerful and hard-hitting. And they each tell a powerful story about an individual while also exposing the truth about a lot of things, but especially a school to prison pipeline. And what was it that made you want to highlight this or tell this story to a wider audience? And Kim Johnson, let's start with you because you went last time.
Okay. Yeah, I really wanted to write a story that talked about the systemic issues that impact our society. I think it's really easy and common, especially when I started writing and people were like kind of awakening more to what Black Lives Matter was in the early iteration of late 2014 and 2015, that they were sort of pinpointing individual scenarios versus looking at things that are systemic. And so I really wanted to touch on those issues and touch on the justice system in a couple of different ways so readers could see how it impacts lives in multiple kinds of ways. And having Jamal, who is the 17-year-old, 18-year-old boy in the character, having suspected of something in his life sort of kind of changing at a moment, but also having the father being in the story as someone who was sentenced to the death sentence, as ways to kind of think about justice in a lot of different ways, and having it be young people kind of in that kind of conversation that we really haven't seen very much in the young adult space. We've seen it, but we haven't seen it a lot.
So true. That is so true. And Kimberly, how about you?
Yeah. Well, in my YA novel, Why We Fly, we talk about we dealt very intensely about how school officers handle Black kids differently than they handle white kids. And then also about how punishment for Black kids at the school level, the data is there, it's been documented, are given harsher punishments than their white counterparts. And so we thought that was an important narrative to tell because it is the gateway to getting kids into the prison pipeline, is the way in which they are handled in the school system, and the way the school system is actually a tool, contrary to popular belief, that is used to help create that school to prison pipeline. And so our main character has a best friend who's white, and they make the same decision, they do the same act on school grounds, except she's the one who gets the higher consequence. She's the one who gets suspended and has all this stuff on her record, and then has to spend, the rest of the book figuring out how to combat the school system that is against her. And I showed intentionally in this book, showed an upwardly mobile Black family who had the finances and resources in order to fight back, because I wanted people to see what that could look like. But also it's still, to me, commentary on, so what does that look like for kids who don't have the money or have the parents that have the education to know how to process that?
That's so true. That's a really wonderful point. Thank you. And Michelle, how about you?
Yeah, so my book was inspired by the Mother Emanuel massacre in Charleston, South Carolina in the summer of 2015. And I was really shaken that it was such a young white supremacist that had committed that atrocious crime, with him being 18, similar with the assailant in the Buffalo massacre, and so many. You could talk about, it's a different issue obviously in Texas, but you see these young people doing these awful things. And so it just got me to thinking about what is being put in their minds and filled with all this hate. And is there a way to maybe reach them with a counter narrative, a counter story, to give them just more of an intellectual backing to resist the hatred that may be influencing them in other aspects of their lives. And then I also thought about, at the time of the massacre, I had an infant son, and I thought, if you're born and you just wake up in this world today and you see things like that happening, you can't understand it without the context. You don't know how to name it, and without seeing the history behind those actions. And so I really wanted to write a story that connected what we're dealing with in the present with what we've gone through in the past. And the more research I did, the more parallels I saw between what America was like when we were first coming out of, the Civil War and the abolition of slavery 150 years ago, and where we still are today. And so the way that the criminal justice system comes into my story is one, my main character, Malcolm, his father was killed by the police in a case of mistaken identity. So he's already, growing up from a baby with that first touch point. And, we see all of the unarmed Black people that have been, killed by law enforcement. And, a lot of times we know their names, we see their faces, but we don't always think about the people they left behind. We saw more of that, I think, with George Floyd, with, his daughter, but all of these people that have been killed are leaving behind children, parents, siblings, people who loved them. And so I wanted people to think about someone who had been left behind. And then Malcolm also has an uncle who has been incarcerated his entire life that is released from prison while he's staying with his family in Mississippi. And so he had never met that uncle before. So that's kind of another touch point. And then Malcolm also has a couple of interactions similar to what Kim Jones described, where it was just different responses by the police to, not giving the Black person the benefit of the doubt in the situation and just assuming their guilt. And so, I wanted people that are reading the book to just sort of see all the different ways that Black people's lives can be impacted by an unjust criminal justice system.
Yes, I love especially what you said, the parallels between right when we're coming out of the Civil War to today, because I think so many people are like, oh, it's so long ago, and it's not.
Right.
We're here.
Yeah. We're like trapped in a vortex that we can't get out of.
Yeah, but the costumes changed just enough to fool everyone into thinking that way.
Right.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to derail you there. And so I know that, Kim, this is your first novel. But for everyone, what was the biggest hurdle? So if it was your first novel, what was your biggest personal hurdle? Why is that so hard to say? For getting that first draft of the book on paper? And if it wasn't your first novel, just what was the biggest hurdle for getting this particular draft out?
Yes, I mean, I'll just jump in. For me, there's lots of hurdles. There's so many hurdles, but I'll try to focus on one hurdle in just the writing of a book. Is I think really trying to think about how to wrap my head around how to tell this story. Because there's just, especially if you're a purpose-driven writer who is sort of called to do this beyond, like you live your life beyond the writing of the book, that you're touching it in a different kind of way. It means something different. And so you have a deeper context if you're a conscious writer and wanting to bear witness. And so I think for me, and probably writers like me, I'm looking at right now, it's like, what do you tackle? Like what do you, and what is too much? And for me, I really wanted, I felt like the huge gap was past is present, present is past. And really getting that context is that like my book could be set 2020, it was set 2000, 1980, 1960, and I wanted to write it in that way. And so how do I actually tell it? And I think that was really the biggest hurdle. And then getting feedback that wanted me to really narrow my story of like, this is too much for YA. So like, do you choose? Do you want to focus on, Tracy trying to help her father or Tracy trying to help her brother? Which one? And I'm like, I can't split the two because I really wanted to focus on the generational implications that are there. And so I would say like that's one, I think, big hurdle is how do you write a story knowing that you want to touch on these pieces and knowing that you have different readers that are coming into the story in different ways. And I'm writing for different kinds of readers. I'm writing for Black readers. I'm writing for readers who want to engage in this story that maybe don't have the background or understanding, and then telling it in that kind of way. So that's just, I think, one hurdle. And maybe the last hurdle is like, I didn't know what I was doing with my first novel. So, I mean, I wrote it and I was like, I hope somebody likes it. And I hope somebody buys it. So, I mean, I think like you're just kind of, you don't know what you're doing, which I think is a good thing, because if I were to try to like, if I felt like I was like, oh, I need to fit this kind of thing, my book would have been really different. And I think my journey would have been really different. So.
Well, I would really like to speak in a hopeful manner to these ladies and other writers as well, because I have 4 books in the world, and to say that it gets easier with each book, but it doesn't.
Here goes my balloon. My balloon.
It
Say it ain't so.
Get easier. Well, and I think the reason that it doesn't get easier is just because with each book, the only process that you don't have to restart is trying to get an agent. That's the only piece that you're not restarting. Every other piece you're restarting. Every other piece has to, like, someone has to want it. And, like, you know, you got to go through acquisitions, and you got to wonder if people in the world want to hear it. And it's like Kim, you know, to Kim's point, if you're writing these kind of like social justice, more conscious driven stories, you have all the thoughts in your head from your lived experience, from anecdotal things you've heard from friends and family members and seen throughout the years, and you do have to realize who your audience is, and be able to still get to them. I say that, you know, books like ours, what they have done successfully, even though people still will try to categorize them as issues books or whatever, they do tell these stories in a very high octane way that lends themselves to people who like specific genres. Like, easily, if a kid told me they like, you know, if they like true crime or mystery, I could give them This Is America, and that would satisfy that for them. You know, this is a brilliantly crafted mystery and true crime tale, you know what I mean? But it has a social justice lens. And so it's like, when I think about all of the books, and if kids tell me that, they like history, like, all of our books gives you pieces of that and like moments of it, but they still are very, especially their books, are like still very well written, just pieces of fiction that have a sense of adventure and discovery and all of these things to it. And that is hard to do. That is really hard to do, to craft a book for teenagers that is still going to be entertaining enough for them that, that they want to flip the pages and put these messages in there, but not become too preachy, not become too heavy-handed, not offer up conversations that they may not be ready to have, harsh realities that you don't want to introduce to them yet. And so the crafting is just as hard each time, unfortunately. I wrote an adult nonfiction book, and I thought that was going to be like easier, because I'm like, finally now I don't have to like curve my tongue. Right. I can just lay it all out in its most raw form. And then it was like, oh, but this is nonfiction, so I have to find real data to back these thoughts. Like, I have to actually make sure everything in here is vetted, that I go sit on someone's interview couch and I start talking about percentages of things and timelines and all of that. It has to be accurate, and every chapter deals with something different, and I have to back that all up. So it was a new hard, but it's worth it if these books are able to get in the hands of the right people, even one person, and have an impact.
Right. Yeah. So for me, definitely the challenge of being a first time author. I hadn't written creatively, I don't think, since high school, until I got hit. Yes, I'm like, I had not been in this world. I hadn't been in this space. I didn't know any other authors. I didn't have anyone I could pick up the phone and say, hey, how do I even start this journey? I got hit with the inspiration of this story, and I looked at my little babies and I was like, gosh darn it, if y'all are the only ones that ever read my book, I'm writing it for you. And so that was kind of how, my mission drove me. And I was like, well, if I can help reach some other kids with this story too, that'll also be great. And I felt like there was a higher chance that my kids would read my book if it was actually a published book, instead of just like a letter from mommy that's 400 pages long. So that, but I just kind of like, my husband bought me some books on like how to be a published author. And that was the first time I realized I needed to get an agent. And I didn't end up getting an agent until right when I was about to publish. So I didn't have an agent through that process, which also, had additional challenges. But I submitted my manuscript to a contest my publishing company was holding, and I placed in that competition, and then they gave me an offer to publish, and so I just went in that direction. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing, like Kim said, it's just a bag. It was just a bag of hurdles that I am grateful I made it through, and have learned so much from the journey.
Well, I've got to say, I'm very grateful that you all made it through the hurdles too, because without that, we wouldn't have your amazing books. Also, I've got to say, Kimberly, the laughter. Oh my gosh, your answer. I almost spit out my soda over here. That was so fun.
She said, I hate to tell you.
Yeah. With the laughter. She's like, I hate to tell you, but I'm gonna laugh.
Right. Yes.
Awesome. So another question that I have is, how can parents and educators use your stories to show both Black joy and the harsh realities that Black children face in the spaces that declare to be safe spaces, such as school? Obviously they can read the books, which we're going to make sure they do. But what else can they do with your stories? And we'll start with Michelle this time.
Me this time. So with my story, the Reconstruction period was such a fascinating time in American history, because Black people were coming out of centuries of enslavement and hit the ground running, doing amazing things with creating institutions to better themselves, educational institutions, religious institutions. They were earning money for their labor for the first time, and were able to deposit that money in banks and build savings and buy land and start businesses, and all the things that you think about that are a part of the American dream for the first time was accessible to Black people. And so I think there's so much joy in learning that, and so much pride. And almost everything that is in my book, I did not know before I started writing my book. Almost everything. I was reading and I was like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. And I felt so much pride in what my ancestors were doing and had done. And then in the present, I think my character also experiences that same, joy, pride, and amazement as he learns about what his forefathers had done, and how so many of the things that they created, even though the white supremacist domestic terrorism really did wipe away a lot of their accomplishments, so many of the things that they created are still with us today. Like, for example, the public school system in the South. There was not a public school system in the South until Robert Smalls was a delegate at the South Carolina Constitutional Convention of 1868, and he had it introduced into their constitution, South Carolina's. And so South Carolina became the first state in the South to create a public school system. And then the other states ended up following. But that, everyone gets to go to school and learn. And that wasn't a given before the contributions of these Black people. And they really understood the value of education, because that had been denied to them in slavery, where it was illegal, punishable by death for them to even learn how to read or write. And so they wanted to just make the most of their freedom and their rights as citizens. And so I loved learning about that, and I loved watching my character grow in terms of how he saw himself, and how he wanted to take advantage of the opportunities that were available to him, knowing the sacrifices that took place to make those opportunities available.
It's wonderful. I love that you mentioned the public schools, because they don't teach that in school, and that it just drives me insane.
Yeah. And I mean, also all of the historically Black colleges and I can't say all of them. A good number of historically Black colleges and universities were founded in the Reconstruction era, like Howard, my alma mater, and plenty of others. And so it's really, and the Mother Emanuel Church. They built their first brick and mortar church in the 1870s in the Reconstruction era. And so that was sort of like a thread that when I discovered that and learned that after the massacre, that was how my story kind of came together, is because I kept seeing the same institution showing up at so many pivotal points in American history.
That is so cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And Kim Johnson, let's skip over to you. I say skip over just because it's the way it's arranged for me.
Yeah, I mean, I love that example, Michelle, that you just shared, because I think it's like putting those realities is really helpful. I think for any student, any young person, in thinking about what can be possible in the odds of the impossible. And I think for me, I mean, there's lots of ways beyond reading it. I like as readers that think place themselves in a story. Like we can look at like what Kimberly Jones does and her like actual co-author books, and having different characters that have very different experiences interacting with each other. And within my stories, I have different characters that come from different backgrounds. And I think any reader can jump into it and think about who are they in that story, like who are they and how would they interact in that story, and who are the parents, are their parents reflected in that story? Are their community members reflected in that story? And what does that mean? I think one model that I love seeing when I visit schools is, because the book has lots of models of how you can be an activist. And that's like Tracy writing letters to Innocence X, having an exercise in a classroom about using advocacy. And if there's something that's upsetting to you, or what we're seeing in our schools right now with safety concerns, with shootings and other kinds of things, writing letters, showing up, organizing, having workshops that it doesn't require money. All it requires is time and commitment in order to do it. I think just really like that acting, like seeing like what is so I'm reading something and it made me feel some type of way. What am I going to do with that particular feeling? Am I going to be a better human? Am I going to be, more, have more empathy, more understanding? Am I going to step up in a space so that the person next to me that I should care about too doesn't have to all the time? I think those really basic human caring traits are things that I would love to see when people read my work.
Yeah, I think a lot of times I get questions due to my activism about like, what can I do? And people want me to give them like actionable items. And I have those that I can give, but like my most consistent answer is the most revolutionary thing you can do is self-improvement. And that imagine a world where we all wake up and grapple with our own implicit bias, and grapple with our childhood traumas, and grapple with our family issues and concerns, and really look realistically at the world that we've created and the ways in which we've got it wrong, and recognize that everything is about growing and learning, and that it doesn't say anything bad about you to say maybe your system that you had before is no longer working and it worked at a time and now it's not, and maybe now you're seeing the flaws in that system and the kinks in it and you need to make some change. And I think that is what I try to put on the page, is that we are all more than our worst day. And in being okay with that, like continuing to like fight forward for things that you want to see change is not, and mostly within, right? Within self. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you should look at yourself darkly. What it means is that you are learning a skill set that's going to allow you to nurture empathy within yourself for other people and for their different lived experiences. And I think it's most interesting to do it in the YA space when people are trying to figure out who they are and what their stances are and what their convictions are exterior to what they've learned with their family, with their spiritual life, with their school, with their community, and all the places where people with good or bad intentions are trying to indoctrinate you into the thought processes that they think work. And you're discovering which of those things do and don't work for you. And again, this is why I go back to, and all of these books are joy. And, you know, like Michelle's book is full of like fantasticalness and ghosts and all of these magic things. And, you know, Kim has this amazing, you know, this amazing true crime story that's invigorating, and you're like, who done it? While you're learning this. And Geely and I's first book, I'm Not Dying With You Tonight, I often refer to it as a social justice adventure. Like, these girls are on a journey together in 4 hours to like get from point A to point B. And so I think the way that YA authors, to me, are tackling more of the important issues than any form of media out there. And I will stand on that. Die on that hill. That you know, YA is really tackling all the issues, from mental health to sexuality to gender identity to, you know, colorism and culture and womanhood and feminism and all of these things. I mean, you even have like amazing dudes like Brendan Kiley tackling you know, toxic masculinity through the lens of young boys. And so it's like, we're doing the hard work, but again, because of who our audience is, we have to insert that joy. We have to insert that adventure. We have to insert that laughter. And life is a balance, right? Even the most hardcore person in the work, my favorite photos of MLK are not him giving speeches. It's the ones of him riding a bike and the ones of him at a beach. Because the only way to bring your best self into any of these fights is to be balanced, is to be your best version of yourself, to be centered, free, and clear of your implicit bias and your struggles like haunting you as you do the work.
Man, what amazing answers those were. I almost forgot I was moderating for a second. I'm like, what's the next question?
I know that felt like therapy. Like, I feel like
yes, like, should
let it go.
I feel like I'm such a big fan of theirs that I don't know how to answer a question without
like, just ask Michelle, just ask Kimberly.
I'm
what she said.
It's amazing. I think it just helps with all the books. It's like, oh, I want to read this one. I want to read this one. Well, now I need to read that one. Now I have to read all of them.
You gotta read all of them.
Oh, and what hope do you all have for what children, or I call them children. I'm sorry, teenagers, you're not children. What hope do you have for the teenagers, the YA crowd who are not children, they are young adults? What hope do you have, or what do you hope they will take away from your novels? I feel like I want to call on, I think
it's Kim Jones's turn to go first.
I'm gonna say that too.
I want them to know that hope looks like the future, and they are the future. That if this world is going to get better, it's going to be because of them. Yeah. I'm paraphrasing here. I can't remember the exact quote, but like Frederick Douglass said that he would rather, you know, I can't remember. Do you remember the quote, Michelle? He says something to the effect of like, I would rather bring forth amazing children than continue to deal with broken men, or something like that. I know it was broken men was the end. He didn't want to do yeah. He was basically like, I throw my hands up at the adults and I talk to the young adults, because that is where the future lies. That is where the hope lies. And so I hope that what kids see when they read these books is we write these kids as the heroes of their own story. And so I hope they see themselves as the hero in their own story. And the greatest trick that was ever played on any of us was convincing us that we didn't have any power. And so if you're convinced that you don't have any power, then you'll be hopeless. And a hopeless man is not a moving man. And so if we're going to push the needle forward, people have to have hope. So I hope they walk away from my stories with hope.
I love all that. Cosign.
Next question.
Nailed it. Yes. The only thing I'll add is that I hope that they see that life is made of choices and you don't have to keep doing what you've been doing. At any point in time, you can choose to do different, choose to do better, choose to learn from your mistakes. And so, so I would just hope that they could see that, as Kim already said, like, you're not who you are defined by your worst day, right? Like, every day is a new day. Every day is a new opportunity. And it's never too late to step in to the person that, you want to be.
Yeah. And I think that, everything that they said, am I gonna have my stamp? Because I think that's why we do what we do. But my hope is always that they recognize how powerful that they are. And often we use this language, I see it all the time as I work with like young people. And we always see that they're still learning, their brains are still forming, their prefrontal cortex isn't formed yet, so they can't make these kind of decisions. And how I see that, it actually is really powerful because they are creating these sort of radical possibilities in ways that our brains are formed and shaped because we've already figured out the patterns of how things exist. And they can recreate new things because their brains aren't set in the way that ours are. And so I think that that's powerful, for it. And, I was watching this video earlier today that somebody sent me of a 13-year-old girl who was speaking at a city council meeting in Grand Rapids. And that's why I do what I do, because, like, she has it. She has it. That gives me hope.
Yeah.
Parts of me makes me sad that someone so young who should be like just on TikTok and eating snacks, has to do that. But it makes me so hopeful that someone so together is able to just communicate and just have like exuding power. That's what she did before it. And that stuff to me inspires me every day when I think about the work and what I do. And I'm just trying to get out of the way for them.
Hope is in the future.
It is.
I love that you mentioned her. I just watched that again before I came here to like give myself some because I am so impressed. And I agree. I wish that she didn't have to stand up, but I thought the same thing. I was like, I want to be like her when I grow up. That is what I aspire to. It's awesome.
Well, I know what I'll be Googling when this is over.
Yeah.
Michelle, you haven't seen it yet. It's gonna knock your socks off.
I haven't seen it. Okay.
It is like the most powerful 5 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever it is. It's amazing. And I love that you all talked about the hope. I don't think I personally had made that connection that you need hope to move forward, and that seeing these kids take charge and stand up is hopeful. I love the way you just framed that. Thank you. I feel like this is therapy. Are you sure? Like,
It's group therapy. It's the co-op. We signed up for the co-op.
leave a nickel on the table.
Exactly.
I love it.
And now, I guess back to being a professional moderator. How did you write this particular novel? In terms of the process, was this something, because I know a lot of people think like, oh, a novel, I'm going to write a novel. Just like, ooh. And it doesn't happen that way so often, but sometimes it does. So is this like, did any of you have like that instant idea, the book was written, it was done, or was it more of like a slower process? I know, Michelle, you said you had to do some research first, right? Like looking into stuff.
Yeah, I spent probably the first 9 months just trying to figure out what was happening in the Reconstruction era, because I never really had been taught it, and I've gone to law school. Like I'm a civil rights attorney. I didn't know any of this. I didn't know that there were like 16 Black members of Congress in the 1870s. There were 2 Black United States senators. There, like, I have a game I play when I'm doing school presentations, and it's called First and Second. And I give them a prompt, and I'm like, okay, who's the first person that did this? And so, just for example, who's the first Black person to be nominated to be Vice President of the United States? What's your answer, Lauren?
I would go with Kamala Harris.
Everyone does, right? It was Frederick Douglass.
My man.
Did I get you two on that one, Kim?
You got me on that one. I didn't know that.
Yes. It was Frederick Douglass. It was like 1872. He was nominated. It was I forgot the party. It was like the Reform ticket. It wasn't a major party. A white woman suffragist was at the head of the ticket, and she tapped him to be her vice presidential running mate. Yes, in the early
Man, wouldn't that have been something? Boy, I tell you.
Wow.
They've
Yes.
been cheated.
I know. And so there's so many facts like that where it's like, oh, you think the first is in our lifetime, but actually it was in the 1870s. We already did this, and we just abandoned that progress, right? And so for me, it was trying to learn that story and find out what happened, since it had been that history had been so buried, was where I started. And then because my book takes place in two different time periods, the present and the past, I had to figure out how those two different stories lined up. So it was just a lot of thinking about, like, how do the stories intersect? You know, how are the characters growing, you know, from their experiences? And then also, in the time that I started writing it, I had 2 additional babies. So I have 4 babies now. So I probably did most of my writing after 10 p.m. once I put my kids to sleep.
Yeah.
So yes, it's been a busy last 6 years.
Oh.
I admire you.
I know. I'm like, woo, I gotta handle that. When writing my YA stuff, the process is a little different because all of that I co-author with my good friend Geely. All 3 of my YA books were co-authored with Geely, and so we have to have a very specific process because it's 2 of us. So we are severe outliners. Like we keep like a little Bible for each of our books where we have like all this stuff down to like what our characters like to eat and how what was their like meeting story and all this stuff. And so I feel like we almost like plot kind of like fantasy writers, because we have like these in-depth like character journals and all this stuff. And it's so that we can understand each other's characters, because even though I'm predominantly writing the Black character and she's predominantly writing the white character, they live in each other's chapters so heavily that I really have to know both characters really well. And then so the only thing that she and I are looking for each other to do is assist each other with cultural markers. So, you know, she'll say stuff like, a 16-year-old white girl will not have had the lived experience to know that. That wouldn't be real for her. And I'll say like, a 70-year-old Black granddaddy wouldn't tolerate that. That's not how that would go. Like that would have to, like, these 6 things would happen and transpire, and like Pops would be down the road looking for her. And, you know, so it's like, you know, we have to do like serious plotting so that we know each other's characters, you know, as well as we can.
Man, that sounds like a lot. Yeah, that's a lot. Never mind, I ain't co-authored nothing with nobody. It's hard enough to keep my stuff in my own hands. Oh my goodness, no. Stories percolate in my head a lot, because I was like Michelle. I came to writing really late. It was 10 years ago, and not really being a writer and just always having stories in my head. So reading a lot, really trying to think about what I was trying to do. Brian Stevenson's Just Mercy, reading that and thinking about those experiences. Michelle Alexander, New Jim Crow, reading a lot of that work, and then young adult work. So, but I'm struck by a scene. So like it almost like for me, it happens like a movie. when a story comes to me. And so it's like I saw close to the ending of the book in my head, like a moment that I wanted characters sort of coming together in the end. And then I saw in the beginning a beat down truck on a dirt road in Texas, and I could smell it, you know, and so then it was like me then writing the story, and usually it's like, you know, the first anywhere from 10 to 30,000 words. I usually just free write because I'm struck by, I'm moved by, you know, a voice, or, you know, there's something compelling me to sort of write a certain way, and it comes really, really quickly. And then it usually slows down, and then I go back, and then that's when I'm percolating and reading and thinking about what I'm trying to do. And then I'll do a lighter outline for it. I won't do a really heavy at least I didn't do a heavy outline for This Is My America. But moving forward, I realize that time is different after you have your first book. when you so those writers are out there, before you get published, and you have all the time in the world, because you're like getting rejected here and there, and you're revising, and then you like sell a second book, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my goodness, I got to get this to you in this amount of time, and it needs to be polished. So now I have embraced outlining, although I really will let those first or like 10 to 30,000 words kind of fly a bit. And then probably like delete half that.
That's so interesting to have like the different approaches, and yet amazing novels come from all the different ways that you get there, like that you put it together. That's so wonderful. And we are almost out of time, but I have a few more questions, and I have a couple of my own questions. There's so many questions. We're going to be here all night. No. Let me go back to my little list here that we have. Do you have a daily writing routine, and do you find that it's important to stick to it if you do?
I'll go first. No, I don't write every day. I can't write every day. I'm too busy. I got other stuff going on. I don't. When I'm writing something, I do stick to a schedule though. I will, like, if I know I'm working on something, or like revising or doing whatever, it's, you know, Saturday, Sunday, 3 to 4 hours. I become a very efficient writer. I don't procrastinate. I really, really focus, because I know I have a little bit of time. And when I do that consistently, I'm able to get stuff done. And then I will take like sort of windows of like a week's vacation, where I'm like doing some intense, like getting the words down, because once I have the words down, then it seems to go back faster on the weekends. But yeah, I can't write every day, and I don't like to wake up early because I don't get enough sleep anyway. So I'm not one of those like 4 a.m. writers. Like that would be pointless, because by the time my coffee is ready, I'm already ready to go back to bed.
Right.
It's useless.
Yeah. What I try to do, I don't write every day, but I try to work on my story every day. And so if I'm not able to write, I'll try to like either read something, you know, that maybe is related. It could be related, like research from what I'm writing, or it could just be like another cool, fun YA book that I just want to like, you know, get in a good headspace for. So I try to like, I feel like I try to work on my craft every day, and it could be writing or it could be other things.
Yeah, I don't write every day. And partially because, especially when I'm writing YA stuff, which is what I write majority of the time, Gili and I have a codependent relationship, and we like to write together. Even if we're writing chapters that we don't need to physically be together to write, we still are physically together. When
oh my God, I love that so much.
So it's all about our schedule, which Gili is a very fancy attorney. So she has a full-time job as in-house counsel at an advertising agency. And I have a day job. I have 2 day jobs. And so, you know, so we can't get together every day. And so we at least try to get together like when we're actively working on a project, we try to get together twice a week. And then we every other month, we'll go on a retreat for like several days where we're locked up in a cabin, and that's all we're doing is writing with each other. And we're very productive when we're away and we don't have kids and work and all that stuff to grapple with, because I have a son and Gili has 3 kids. And so, yeah, I write every day, but I don't get to write on novels every day because one of my day jobs is I'm a staff writer at Warner Brothers, so I have to write every day for them, but I don't write every day on my novel stuff.
Man, we just are some ballers. Look at us. We get stuff done.
I know.
I don't know how.
It's yeah.
I also didn't know that you and Gili wrote together. Like,
I love that so
together.
much. Oh my gosh.
We write physically together. We just need each other to do it. We're starting to be concerned that it's not healthy.
You're becoming one person. You're merging.
A blob.
When I have a follow-up question, Kim, when you guys write together, do you like write a chapter and then swap drafts to get feedback? Or is it like, are y'all just kind of talking about it as you go, or?
We're just like talking about it as we go. And like Gili does most of the typing. And then I'm just like lurking over her the entire time. And then
you're like, no, they wouldn't say it like that. They wouldn't say it like that.
No, change that.
Oh my God. That's totally your like writer's room spirit.
I love it.
I totally see it. Yeah.
So like
can we come to the party one day?
Yes, come to the party. It's so much fun. Ooh, and Ima, that's what I call her. Mom, because she moms me. Ima cooks for you when you write with her. Every time that I write with her, she cooks for me. Even when we're on retreat, she cooks for me. And we used to have a writer salon on Friday mornings where writers, because Ima used to have Fridays off at work. And so she has this amazing, huge wood dining room table. And so she used to host, and of course, COVID stopped it and we haven't resumed it since COVID, but we used to have a writer salon on Friday morning where we would sit with other writers and write, and we would all critique each other. And that writer salon was me, Gili, Nick Stone, Brianna McDaniel, Marie Marcourt, and then we had other writers, Rachel Allen Stewart, and then other writers who would drop in periodically, but that was kind of like the core. Vicky Alver Schechter, that was like the core group that wrote, and then other writers would like drop in and out, like this girl Robin who writes adult books. She's the only one who writes adult books. That would come in, but yeah, we would all sit and write, and so like a good chunk of like Dear Martin was like workshopped at that table.
Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Not a chunk of, I should rephrase that, not a chunk of the book. When she was in edits, when Nick was in edits, we would be at that table and we would all like, yeah. So like that writer salon really birthed a lot of books. Even picture book writers would come, like Connie Morrison would come on Friday mornings, and like, and Brianna McDaniel, who's a picture book writer, would come on Friday mornings. Like now we have like this boom of people that now live in Atlanta, like Angie Thomas has moved there, and Tiffany Jackson and Mark Oshiro and all these people. But before they all moved there, the writers who were there, Julian Winters, Friday mornings, everyone knew you could come to Ima's house and she would cook you breakfast and we would sit and give each other critique.
That is beautiful.
It is.
It is.
Sounds like I got to move to Atlanta.
I know.
Come on.
I think I just heard you say Tiffany Jackson. She left Brooklyn.
Yeah,
Is it Atlanta?
Tiffany lives here now, and Nick, and we do so much stuff together. Like we once a month, we have this thing called Margaritas and Mingle, and it's all kid-lit authors, and we get together and we have margaritas and snacks, and we don't even like, it's just us talking. Like if someone's stuck on something, or like they're having an issue with an agent and all of that, and we like just sit around at Margaritas and Mingle. And we had stopped it again because of COVID, but the first one came back like 2 weeks ago, and I was sad because I was out of town doing a signing and couldn't come. But like I looked at the pictures, and like Tiffany Jackson and Mark Oshiro and Nick Stone and Marie Morford and and Rachel and all these Vanya Stoyanova and all these, authors were there. And so we have a really supportive community.
I'm gonna be driving through Atlanta in August, so I'm gonna check your schedule.
Hopefully it'll be around the time of margaritas and Mingo.
Yes. I like strawberry flavored.
Done.
I love it. And Kim Johnson and Michelle, do either of you work with writing groups or like critique groups of any kind? Not yet.
Girl, I'm all alone out here on this west coast. No.
Just right now. Just right now. This is going to change it all.
I'll say not yet, but now I know what's missing in my life.
So I know. I'm
like,
things gonna have to change, because that just sounds like a really great life.
Yes.
I will admit, like, it's a lot of fun. But listen, we could coordinate one on the West Coast. We could definitely I'll find out who's out there, and we'll.
I'm in DC, so we got to coordinate a DC one.
Well, when I go visit, I'm actually going to be there this summer, so I'll see y'all.
I'm gonna link you guys up with Mayra Cuevas. I don't know if you know her. She's a YA.
Oh, Mayra, yeah. I don't know where Mayra lives though.
She lives in Atlanta. She's the one who started Margarita Domingo.
Wait, how does this help us?
Yeah. Let me tell you something. Mayra coordinates everything for all of us. Writing retreats. We have writing retreats. We do all this stuff.
We get the blueprint. We'll get the blueprint.
Mayra has the blueprint. She's in charge of her and Gili are in charge of all of us.
Okay. That's what I need. I need to find someone to be in charge of me.
Yeah.
Because it can't be me. I need a break.
Gili and Mayra like to be in charge, so we all just like sit back and like we'll
show up. You got to have somebody like that in your life, right? All you have to do is show up.
Yeah, the two of them, and so it's not all this weight on one person, right? Because it's two of them that are like that. Yeah. And Vanya Stoyanova, she's like that as well. So between the three of them, they whip all this stuff up, and we're just like, all right, we're on our way.
That is awesome. That sounds amazing. Man, I'm a little jealous. It's all right. If you all ever come to Denver, we will have a margarita for you here.
Nice.
Take you up on that.
Yes, we will host it here personally. Oh man, well, I wish we could talk all night. I genuinely feel like I could just keep asking you all questions. I have so many more. I know you probably have so many more. If you're watching this video, you can check out any of their websites. If you don't find the answer to your burning question on their website, go ahead and submit the question to them. You can also submit it to us at Second Star. I know how to get in touch with them, so I can help you out. And if you haven't yet gotten any of these amazing books, check out the link that's going to be in the comment section. Or I forget how YouTube works, but you're going to be able to click a link somewhere on YouTube and you will get those books. Do not miss out on your chance to read these amazing novels. It is truly a treat. And it was such a pleasure to get to chat with all of you tonight and to share these stories. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It was good to see you all.
Good to see you guys.
For having us. It's so good to see you, ladies. Family reunion.
Yes, fun night.
Wonderful. Well, friends, thank you all for joining us today. If you have any other questions, you can find us at secondstartotherightbooks.com. Once again, my name is Lauren in Denver, Colorado. Happy reading, my friends.